views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers, and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. Some interviews heard on this program may be sponsored by the participants. It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it must be Friday, and indeed it is. It is Friday, April 30th, the last day of the month of April. Hard to believe it. We're screaming into May starting tomorrow. And we're coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park Studios of Money Radio, 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, and the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. If you're just tuning in, our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. How are they able to do that? They're able to do that by listening to the show. We bring extraordinary guests, and no different than today. For those listeners that have been listening for a while, I've got two return guests that were here at the very beginning of this pandemic. They were here on May 5th, 2020, Cinco de Mayo, and they're here again on April 30th, 2021. So I'd like to please have our listeners welcome Jon Scott Williams. He's the Executive Director of Fellowship Square in Mesa, Arizona. Welcome to the show, Jon Scott.
Well, I appreciate being here.
It's good to have you back.
Well, thank you, sir.
And then I've got just to his right, my left, Jaime Roberts. She's the Executive Director at the Terraces. Welcome back, Jaime.
Thank you. Happy to be here with both of you.
It's good to have you back here. So when we were last together, May 5th, the world was coming to an end. It was on fire, and it literally was on fire. Both of you guys did not have any COVID. Matter of fact, Jon Scott, I remember you saying that you tested everybody in your community, the workers, the residents, and you were really nervous, and you got the report that following morning or a couple mornings later, and you wanted to cry because you weren't sure if...
I broke down because that's just after we found out about asymptomatic COVID. And we knew what to do with people coughing, but we didn't know what to do with people who had no symptoms.
Right.
And it was so scary, and there was 426 people that were negative. And I thought, suppose they come back positive.
Right.
What do you do? I'd lose the entire workforce. It was a brave thing to do, but at the moment I got the answer back, it was humbling, very humbling.
And Jaime, the same with you. At the time, May 5th, there wasn't a COVID case in your at the Terraces.
Mm-hmm.
How were you feeling then, and how are you feeling now?
Well, it was anxiety overload for everyone working in the industry. I think when we did our testing, so we test frequently, and it kind of feels like Groundhog's Day each time you do it, because you're repeating this feeling of, here we go again, and then you're kind of waiting for the results, pressing refresh on the refresh button for the portal to find the answers out, and we didn't have our first positive resident until July. So each week from May until July, as we're testing, you're kind of holding your breath for that each week, and it was anticipatory anxiety on top of the stress and the struggle of trying to keep a team calm, residents calm, family members calm, dealing with the constant, negative media attention. It was not a moment in time that I think I would ever want to repeat. Right, Jon Scott?
Correct. 2020 can disappear from the calendar.
It still feels like sometimes we're still in 2020, doesn't it? I mean, because COVID hasn't disappeared entirely. Did you end up having a COVID positive case?
Yes, the numbers worked out that across all divisions, all populations, we had 64 people with COVID. Our biggest problem area was memory care, because the executive functions don't work there,
Right.
and that's where we had the most. But we only had, if including the people who were already on hospice, we only had 4 people die of COVID, which we thought was an amazing record.
Oh, I would agree. I definitely would agree, especially with the number of people that were on hospice. And you the same?
We had very similar numbers. Our death rate was incredibly low. Out of our outbreak, we had 1 outbreak in July, and from that outbreak, we had 3 deaths, all over the age of 95 and on hospice. So we were very pleased with our results. We did have an outbreak in our memory support neighborhood as well, and it is that's a interesting challenge that of when you look at person-centered care and how we're trying to provide person-centered care in our industry, and how difficult that became with all of the regulations on trying to keep people safe. And so it was an interesting dynamic, and it was definitely we're still learning on how to do that.
I think that what fascinated me most about our visit together on May 5th last year was the fact that you guys put together protocols. I mean, you had really strict protocols in place to really mitigate and prevent the spread. And I think both of you guys here are talking about how you lost few lives. I mean, 4, 3, whatever. I mean, those are lives that you lost, and regrettably, we lost those lives. But gosh, it could have been so much worse. And I think the protocols that you guys put in place enabled you to keep that down.
And it took the cooperation of the families, the friends, the residents, because after I leave at 5 o'clock, residents would come in the side door, family members would come in the side door, and we'd have to remind them. But I think we were probably 70% compliant. Some people just thought it was all fake news, and some people said, well, I'm okay, but I don't know where that person had been, that sort of thing. But by doing it in the independent, the assisted living, across the board, and then we added several areas of technology that we enhanced that we had already been doing. And one of the things I'll talk to you about is a thing called hydroxyl. That's where we ionize hydrogen peroxide that's made from the air and oxygen in the air. It helps purify the air. It has a half-life of click of a finger.
Wow.
And because of that, we were able to open our dining rooms much earlier. Purifying the air 24/7 kills virus, bacteria, and mold.
That's the thing I love about you, Jon Scott, is that you're always, I mean, yes, you just celebrated a big birthday last year. And,
71.
And 71. And yes, you can teach an old dog new tricks, because you have really grown to not only learn about technology, but adopt technology in your community.
In that case, we took hydroxyls from the home remediation. When you have mold in your house,
yeah,
the machines they use produce hydroxyls. We just started using it in public areas and slowed the speed down from 4,000 cubic feet to 1,000 so you can hear.
Wow. Well, and I also want to ask, you open up dining. And,
yes.
and I may get to Jamie in the second segment, but tell me, how long ago did you open up dining? And I'm assuming that people are as much physically distanced as they need to be. Did you make any changes there?
Yes, we did follow the Arizona Restaurant Association. I was a member of that for 30 years when I had my own restaurants. So we followed those, and we took our normal occupancy to 25%. So we were 12 feet apart. And during that time, people didn't want to eat in the dining room anyway. We gave them the choice that they could eat in their apartments or in the dining room. And at first, we only had 25% of the residents come down, which means it never got busy in our dining room.
Nice.
So we're on 2 fronts, delivering and serving, which is expensive if you're operating, doing 20,000 meals a month. So.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the workforce piece and the challenges that come along with that. You hear the music? It goes by really fast, guys, and there's so much more I want to cover. I do have a guest that's coming in the second half that was on our show May 5th last year, That is Mort Scult. He is a resident over at Sagewood. Just want to get his take from a resident standpoint on what the last year has been like. And certainly you guys, both of you, can share that as well, because I'm sure you guys get a chance to talk to all your residents and their families about what it's been like. Well, we got a little Bruce Springsteen taking us out. We're down one segment. I've got Jon Scott Williams from Fellowship Square in Mesa. You say that's where God kisses the sky. Good morning.
God kisses the valley. Good morning.
Good morning. And then I got Jaime Roberts. She's the executive director at the Terraces. Stick around. 1 down, 3 to go. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I'm your host, Bob Roth. We're on segment number 2. And if you're just tuning in, I've got Jon Scott Williams, executive director from Fellowship Square in Mesa, and I've got Jaime Roberts, the executive director from the Terraces. And in our first segment, we were finishing up talking about the dining facilities, and Jon Scott was talking about technology that he's implemented. And what's that air purifier called?
Hydroxyls.
Hydroxyls.
It produces hydroxyls, and it's primarily used in the restoration business. We talked to the people in Florida that make it, and we had them to adopt it to dining rooms, public spaces. And we put it in our memory support area because our residents don't understand washing their hands. We loaded that building down with them and put it in our public dining.
Nice. And you talk about the memory care support area. I mean, let's face it. I mean, when you have a memory care impairment, it is very challenging to keep people physically distanced. It's very challenging to put masks on people. I mean, it's a scary experience. So, when you guys talked at the very beginning of the segment, when you talked about the incidence of COVID in your communities, apparently it has to happen there because they don't understand the protocols that you need to put in place.
Correct. Jaime had an excellent, with her numbers, it means a lot of work went into it. And even the properties that had higher numbers, it depends. It's like going to the Arizona Heart Hospital. They're going to have more problems with hearts there than someplace else. So if you specialize in certain areas, you're going to have a higher number. So the number doesn't tell everything.
Right.
But when you walk in the building, you can tell.
No doubt. So Jaime, tell me about life over at the Terraces. Is dining opening there?
We have been open. We opened up all levels of living have dining open, and it was actually very emotional on those very first days of opening. The residents now are coming down and at rates that we had not seen for a very long time. So when we first opened, they were much slower to adapt to it. They got used to the home delivery, which we're actually seeing, what a negative impact that actually has had on them, because they got comfortable with that, and their just the mental health piece that was really created from that from our independent living residents. But now that the dining room's open and encouraging them to come back out, seeing life literally come back to them and to our community has been really a beautiful thing. So very grateful that we're able to do that. We have been, just like Jon Scott, trying to implement all of the recommendations from the Restaurant Association and enforcing them to the highest degree that we can. We will be opening up our dining room to guests on Mother's Day. So we're actually opening up on Mother's Day for guests with a beautiful brunch outside. Really excited to welcome families back
I got
on
chills.
the campus. So, last year for Mother's Day, we did a Mother's Day drive-by, and they were driving through the community honking horns, and we were, they were holding up signs. This year we're together. We're gathering in person together, and it's been an emotional, beautiful experience, and just so happy to be able to provide that.
The impact emotionally is it's one that I don't think we'll ever be able to measure.
No.
Never be able to measure at all. So, obviously things are opening up, and our discussion on the coronavirus wouldn't be complete if we didn't talk about vaccinations. So, Jon Scott, talk to me about vaccinations with your residents. Talk to me about your workers. Obviously, you're opening up because people are getting vaccinated.
Yes, the vaccination, that warp speed vaccination that came, one of the legacies of President Trump. They were told last year at this time a vaccination was 5 years in the coming, and there's no way we'd be able to do it in the time that we had it. The residents I think all but 9 of the residents are vaccinated.
Out of like 400 and...
Out of 385,
Wow.
all but 9. Of the staff, 164 staff, we're at 70%. But the interesting part was on the first round, we had a lot of staff pass. Mm-hmm. So that's why we had 3 clinics on our property. The third clinic, we had 160 people go to it. That means we had a bunch of staff to go. We're over 70, but we were at like 50 or 40 on the first round, and they saw what was happening, and they voted with their footprints.
Sure.
And so we feel very good about it. And on April 20th, which was 14 days after April 6th, our third clinic, then we're a completely fully vaccinated community, and that's whenever we started opening everything up across all of the areas were fully opened at that time. And we started visitors in our building, our dining room, on Easter, which for us was a big day in our history. So,
wow, that is huge, and yes, it is a big day. How about vaccinations?
We did 4 vaccination clinics. We did 923 vaccines on our campus.
Wow!
So we have our resident vaccination rate is we had a 99% resident vaccination rate. Our team members, Jon Scott did much. I mean, our team members are still hesitant, so we're about 60%. But we did also vaccinate a lot of our ancillary people, the hairdressers, people who do a lot of the internal moves for us, some family members that are direct caregivers, private duty caregivers. Our construction crew that's doing remodels, we encouraged all of them to come in, our fitness instructors, all of those people who are constantly kind of in contact. We invited all of those people. So we were really happy with our vaccination rates, and our residents were very funny because we did 4 clinics, and by the 4th clinic, they're like, we'll come do another one. I mean, this is great. We'll just keep getting them because they were just so excited. And I have young daughters, but on the first vaccination clinic, it was vaccination day, which was like Coronation Day from Frozen. If you know, that's, so I kept on singing, it's vaccination day. And ours were always on Saturdays. And it just became, we had, every 4 weeks we had a vaccination clinic, and it became a thing for the residents. So it became an activity really to watch it.
Well, and I'm not surprised in terms of the compliance, if you would, from the residents, and they feel, for the most part, secure. They feel not necessarily bulletproof, but they feel better about it. But the workforce piece is a challenge that all of us have. And, for you to be at 70 and you to be at 60, I know that even in home care, I know when we polled direct care workers right from the start, 35% of them said that they would do it. About 15 to 20% said they would consider it. And then really the rest, like 55%, said no way, they won't do it. And, it's about educating. I know, it's a lot of communities have been incentivizing. How do we get more and more direct care workers to do it?
I can't tell you how to do it, but we did persuade. I believe in persuasion as opposed to a bat. And by example, I was right up in front.
I saw a picture of you getting it.
Okay, yeah. I got that shot, and we posed the shots because the first time I had a shirt on like this, and they had to tear it off. Second time I had a T-shirt. So, but we did that on purpose, and the crew responded in kind.
Nice, and the same I would imagine with you guys.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of conversation about it and trying to get over that vaccine hesitancy and what their opposition is, and so we require every team member to have a flu shot unless there is a religious or medical exemption. We have not required it for the vaccine. But when we, our flu shot is 100% compliant. So we kind of likened it to that, to the extent of from an education piece. And by the third clinic, people were really kind of coming around and a little bit more interested. We still have team members now that are going off-site and finding, making their own appointments and doing it when they're comfortable. We did hear from team members that they wanted only one shot, so they were waiting for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So there were, there were a couple of different reasons for what, kind of made somebody tick. But it is a lot of just conversation about it.
Moderna or Pfizer in both your communities?
Moderna.
Moderna was the primary one. Interesting. I got the Pfizer one, but I mean, it's 2 shots and done. Over.
You had 2 shots with Pfizer.
I did.
Ours was 2 shots.
Yeah, and what's funny is that we were sitting here last time masked, and here we are a year later, and I feel comfortable being in the room with you guys. I mean, the fact that we have been vaccinated and certainly following CDC guidelines, it's all good. Really,
it's part of reopening. It's part of becoming normal as we can.
Right.
Some of the things we love. Video conferencing, there's still a place for it.
Oh,
Zoom
absolutely.
calls, still a place for it. So we've developed an entire technology that our residents are now comfortable with.
Well, I do want to talk about, when we come back in the second half, I want to talk about what some of our key learnings are and how things are different, how we go forward in senior care, certainly senior care living, and certainly home care. Also, I want to remind our audience, Mort Scult is going to come in on the second half, right at the very beginning, and tell us what it's like to live in a community.
Great.
Stick around. We're at halftime here at Health Futures. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we're in our second half here. If you're just tuning in, we are talking with Jon Scott Williams. He's the executive director from Fellowship Square in Mesa. And we also have Jaime Roberts. She is the executive director from the Terraces. And we also have a guest who popped on for this segment. A guest that was here back a year ago on May 5th, 2020, Mort Scult. Mort, welcome to Health Futures.
Thank you, Bob. Good afternoon.
It's good to have you back on the show. And as I was telling our listeners and sharing with our guests here in the studio that, wow, a lot has changed in a year. And
incredible.
And I wanted to bring you back on the show because you bring a little different perspective from a resident standpoint. For our listeners, Mort Scult is a resident over at Sagewood. And Sagewood is right there. If you're here in Phoenix, it's right there behind the MIM, which is the Musical Instrument Museum, and right next to Mayo Clinic Hospital. And, Mort, if you could take a few minutes and tell us what life has been like as a resident at Sagewood.
Well, it's in some ways you might call it like a blackboard where somebody used an eraser and basically erased an hour plus all up to a year of your life away. But I think that certainly at Sagewood, even though we have achieved all kinds of protocols that have been recommended both federally and also in connection with Sagewood itself, we've had a minimum amount of people who have contracted the virus. And I think that this year has given everybody an opportunity to perhaps look at their life and examine what are the things that are the most important, like family and their good health. And Sagewood is a place that encourages those things, at least to some degree, by having Zoom conferences with your family and friends. We are now in the process of moving into what is called Phase 3, which means that we are proceeding to whatever normal was or will be. And I think that everybody's looking forward to it. They're very hopeful about the future. And by and large, I think everybody's pretty excited about it, and certainly happy to come out of the storm.
Absolutely. So, phase 3 is forthcoming. Are you guys back at the dining facilities and somewhat normalcy, but maybe physically distanced? What's that looking like?
The dining facilities will be opening up probably in the next 2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
And and the idea of having family and visitors has been opened up partially in the sense of having people out during the day, not overnight. But nevertheless, it gives people an opportunity to reconnect in person, and that's, of course, very, very important to all of us.
Sure. And Jamie was sharing with us in the last segment that they're having a big opening around Mother's Day. I would imagine Mother's Day is pretty big there at Sagewood too.
Absolutely. And it's obviously it's been very, very tragic for many, many people, and we see that here too. Nevertheless, there have been things worse in the world that have happened, and it's interesting to count your blessings. And I think that when people pause and think about what the world has been, let's say in the past 60 years or so in their life, they really have a lot to be thankful for living in this country, among other things.
Exactly. And the thing that really impresses me most about you, Mort, is that you embrace technology. You're doing Zoom calls. If you're willing to, I think you shared your age last year. How old are you, Mort?
That's not for publication. That's between you and me. I'm 89.
89 years old. God bless you.
Don't say it that way. That sounds awfully old.
It does, but I mean, you are the most with it 89-year-old that I do know, and really the example that you shared, the fact that 1 year has just been kind of wiped off. I mean, you lost a year. We all lost a year. We did. It really is sad for all the losses that we did have, but we got so much to be thankful for and blessings that we have here in the future.
That's true. Absolutely. There's no question about it. And with all the warts and pimples that this country has to deal with, it's still the great country in the world.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Amen. The last time we were together, you and Jon Scott found some commonality. I think it was Eagle Scouts, right? You guys were talking Eagle Scouts.
Oh, I forgot that. Yes.
That was a long time ago. Yeah. I know.
And it was key that we're Eagle Scouts. They don't take it away when you turn 21.
Well, as I tell a lot of young people who are in scouting, to make sure you put it on your resume, it's just amazing. I don't know if John's had this experience, but employers, when you put that on your resume, there's either a connection or an admiration of who you are and what you have been and what they expect of you. And it's very interesting from an employer's viewpoint, their reaction when they see that somebody became an Eagle Scout.
Good for saying that, Mort.
Maybe John can add something to that, too.
My son became an Eagle Scout because he found out when he joined the Navy he'd get $150 more per month. So he got that last badge. So.
Well, it may be a matter of money, but it's also a matter of respect, and it's a matter of advancement in the business world. It really does mean a lot. I mean, they value it a lot, and they may kid around a little bit about it, but nevertheless, or talk about scout camp and all the bad things that happened with the skunks and all that. But by and large, that experience bodes well for people who have been through it, and also from the standpoint of employers in terms of respect and advancement.
I agree.
At least I found that.
So Jon Scott and Jamie, do you have any questions for Mort? Just want to open it up and let you guys maybe take that mic and ask him a question too as we wind down this third segment. And you know what, Jamie?
Well, I was just curious, Mort, how do you, when you look at your life and all the decisions that you made, and then the last year being in a community, did the decision of moving into Sagewood, did that make that decision? Were you more proud of that decision during the pandemic, or would you wish that you had made a different decision?
I can't even imagine what life would be like if I was still living in our house. First of all, as you know, my wife passed away, a year ago last March from Alzheimer's. But we didn't come into Sagewood because of illness, by no means. What we wanted is we wanted a place where we could lock the door and travel and not worry about our pool and not worry about yard work and all the other things that you do. And just whatever time we had, we wanted it to be of great value. And because time, as we all know, as we grow older, time is very precious, as it is when you're young, but you always think that you have many, many years.
So true.
And so from our viewpoint, moving into this retirement community was not retirement at all. And the first thing I did when I came in here, we started a hiking club, which is still moving on, and a film club, which we now have 180 members. So a lot of these residences do allow the residents to create their own programs that entertain people, or even better, help them learn. And we have an enormous amount of programs here that are that way, where there's constant opportunities to share experiences and learn.
I think Mort's answer is he's happy he made that decision because his life is more enriched as a result of that.
Oh, there's no question about it.
You know, Mort, we're winding down the third segment. You're welcome to stick around for the fourth, but I will tell you, you are an amazing friend, and thank you for joining us. And
it's a pleasure.
You know, Arlene's passing back in March of 2020. I mean, we got together as a community. That was the last time we were together. And It's really nice for it to be coming out and things getting back to somewhat normalcy. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You.
Thank you, Bob. Good luck to you.
I'm your host, Bob Roth. I got Jon Scott Williams, Jaime Roberts, and Mort Scult with us. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. We're here in our fourth segment, concluding our show here today. I've got Jon Scott Williams, Executive Director from Fellowship Square in Mesa. I've got Jaime Roberts. She is the Executive Director from the Terraces. And I still have Mort Scult sticking around. And Mort, please chime in whenever you feel like you want to. But I wanted to talk about here in this last segment, I want to talk about some of the key learnings that we have had as a result of this pandemic, but I also want to talk about workforce because we are challenged in the home care space, as I know you guys are as well. So, Jon Scott, key learnings. What are some of your takeaways? I know you talked about technology now, having adopted that as part of what you're doing.
Yes, we came up with multiple ways to have touchless technology within the community. So our residents can get what they need without having to touch an iPad or touch a screen. They can just say, Alexa, what's the breakfast? What's the entree?
I love it.
Alexa, play me some Bing Crosby. Alexa, what's the activities today? And during COVID, the activities were watching the deliveries, not much going on. But all of the Alexa commands that we developed, and we have been exporting that technology to other communities across the West Coast, and we're collecting 50 cents on Alexa as part of our royalties. So it's not a lot of money, but the people that are receiving it really like it. We have Alexa check-ins, all sorts of
Are you using the buttons or are you using the mainstay Alexa, if you would?
Right now, we've been using the Alexa. You can call it the first one.
The first generation.
Hockey puck.
Yep.
But the second one is where they can control the lights. Alexa, turn on the microwave.
Whoa.
Alexa, change
Smart.
the channel.
Smart house.
All the technology. And our new residents moving in are expecting the technology. The key is they're not going to move from a smart house to a dumb apartment. So that's a big technology that we learned.
I love that. How about you, Jamie?
We too have adopted a technology, very grateful for that, and it's really kind of propelled our residents into, even though they might have been hesitant about it, now it's a lifeline for them. I don't know if it was it's something that we already knew. We already knew our industry was in crisis before COVID. COVID was just a crisis on top of a crisis when it comes to our workforce. So I think the at least shining a light on the need to have competent, capable, critical thinkers on the front line has proven to be absolutely a necessity if we, as a healthcare continuum, and in addition to services and hospitality continuum, want to be relevant. We have to have people who can think and learn and make good decisions in a situation, and we need them to be committed and reliable and all of the things that we need in a workforce. But that became very clear, and so finding ways to have engagement with our team members is something that we've been dealing with for a very long time, but has created a unique opportunity for us to relook at that.
And I'm sure you guys have seen people step up in your organizations. You've been surprised, or maybe not so surprised. You knew that you had talent, but people have really come to the forefront and stepped up.
Adversity will bring that forth. The people who have it will step forward and rise to the occasion. Likewise, people that are there only for a paycheck. Those are the days we lost 30% of our workforce out of ignorance. The PPE, their protective equipment, will protect them, but out of fear, whenever first COVID got into the building, they would leave. And then you have to coax them back and understand their fear.
Right.
It's not a cowardness. They have children.
Right.
They don't want their children to die.
Or they're living with their parents, too. We have a lot of multi-generational living
because
situation.
of the whole year, a lot of them have their mother and father living with them as well. So if they take it home and mom and dad get it, they could die. So they were in a very awkward position. The vaccine has changed that.
Yes.
But nobody knew what we didn't know last year. So you have to respect it. But there were a group of people that did step forward, even in the face of all of the fear.
Yes.
I do call that courage.
Yeah, we had a lot of that. I think, speaking to the PPE, I actually think the PPE shortage was what caused a lot of the anxiety with healthcare providers. So one of the learnings that we took away from this is that, we're going to have a 30-day supply of PPE, always available. That's going to be our PAR levels, a 30-day supply of all levels of, precautions. So that was, so we built the storage room to afford us the space to do it. And that is what we know. Now we have a really strong inventory mechanism in place, where we always have the proper amount of PPE, because the day one when we shut down in March, if we had the PPE there enough for people to, for them to remain calm, they would have remained calm because they know what to do. We know how to do things under droplet precautions. That's what we do in a healthcare setting. We know that.
Right.
So, I think being able to give confidence to your workforce that you've committed to giving them the supplies or the PPE that they need, and support them through that process was absolutely, it's what we all have to do. We have to continue to do it.
One of the biggest challenges we have is that we have a aging population. In the state of Arizona, by 2030, we're going to have more people 65 and older than we are going to have 18 and younger. So we're hitting a tipping point. We knew that we had a workforce shortage. Now this pandemic has made it even more noticeable. We have a workforce shortage, and we, and we can collectively here agree or disagree, but the biggest competition we have right now is our government paying out unemployment and also stimulus money, where a lot of workers have decided not to come back, and we need workers. We need them in our space. We need them in the restaurant space. We need them in the trades. I don't know what that answer is, but I know that About 2 months ago, I had Todd Laporte, the president and CEO of Honor Health here, and he said, we need more people in healthcare. I'm making that appeal to our listeners right now. We need people in the healthcare continuum. Caregiving is a great space, whether it be in the home or in a community setting like Fellowship Square, like the Terraces, or even Sagewood where Mort is. You guys want to comment on it? We got about a minute left.
Last year at this time, my great plan was to provide education for lifelong learning to the senior communities around Fellowship Square. And as I would do that, I would recruit people who are young retired, that are retired nurses, retired medical profession, so that they can come and volunteer and get paid at Fellowship Square. So I'd have a whole workforce. But because of COVID, we couldn't go out and do that. I'm looking for people who are in senior communities. They don't want to work every day. I'll take you half a day, 2 days a week.
Right.
I'll take those shifts, and you'll find enjoyment, and you'll be able to apply what you know to a group of people who are very thankful for good care.
And appreciative.
Right. Yeah, and I think being creative in what we're doing. I mean, we have this model of workflows and what you're supposed to do based off of my job description, and I think being creative and in terms of allowing other people to do some of that other work, that will create space for a licensed professional to do some of their work as well. Reducing the regulation that sometimes infringes on that ability to do that is also part of that larger conversation.
Jaime Roberts from the Terraces, Executive Director, Jon Scott, Executive Director from Fellowship Square, Mort Scult. Thank you to the three of you. Mort, do you want to make a final comment? I'll give you the platform here.
I must say that I think we need to appreciate the healthcare industry that has stepped up to the challenge and really, really helped out. I know what they did for me, and they are the unsung heroes. I mean it.
Thank you, Mort. Thank you.
Without them, it would be quite different.
So true. So true. Well, listen, make it a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll be back next Friday. Thank you all.
Thanks, Bob.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.